Every episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bill Fick Ford and the WCRA. Thank you to Train Shot. Guys, Bill Fick Ford is the #1 Super Duty dealer in the country for the 4th year in a row. You guys have heard me rant and rave about Bill Fick Ford for the absolute best buying experience in the car industry, truck industry. Bill Fick Ford's the place to go. I bet you remember the old ad where I said I was getting a new Super Duty. Well, here's the keys for that. Bill Fick Ford delivers, guys. No bull discounts, no bull interest rates, the best buying experience you can get. And if you are not local to Huntsville or the Houston area, he'll deliver it to you just like he did to me. Bill Fick Ford. If I say, who wants to be a millionaire? Would anybody not put their hand up? Of course not, especially in rodeo. Well, thanks to the WCRA, the dream of a $1 million purse has finally come true. You can win $1 million by nominating your rides and runs and earning points with the WCRA. Through the Triple Crown of Rodeo, the WCRA will award a $1 million cash prize to any athlete or collection of athletes who wins first place in any 3 consecutive WCRA major rodeos. $1 million up for grabs, which is pretty much unheard of. Rodeo Corpus Christi will be the very first stop in the 2021 Triple Crown of Rodeo. The event will pay over $540,000. Yes, I said it, $545,000, and will be held on May 6th through May 9th. There will be 0 entry fees. That's right. You don't even have to pay to enter this rodeo. The only thing you have to do to qualify for the Triple Crown of Rodeo event is by nominating your rides or runs with the WCRA. Here's the common misconception with the WCRA. It's just for the pros, for the elites. Well, if you can hang with these people, but maybe you don't want to commit to pro rodeo, I get it. It's a big commitment. The WCRA is made for people like you because you can enter these events, nominate your rodeos, and win crazy money, just like Rodeo Corpus Christi and this $1 million we keep talking about. To learn more, just visit triplecrownofrodeo.com. Again, that's triplecrownofrodeo.com to see how you can earn a spot at Rodeo Corpus Christi and possibly be the rodeo's next millionaire. Pow! Guys, if you're like me, you are hoarding your guns and ammo right now. We don't know what the heck is going on. Here's the thing. You can't get ammo, so the last thing you want to do is train and use up your ammunition. But of course, on the flip side, you've got to train if you want to be effective with your arms. That's where our partner Train Shot comes in. They've created a seamless app and device that allows you to shoot and improve your skills. No tapes required, no spotting scopes required, no wasted time downrange. You will also save a ton of money using Train Shot because you don't use the same amount of ammunition and supplies that you would with traditional targets. The app is designed specifically to save you time and, of course, the ammunition we keep referencing. You can track your speed, your improvements over time, draw time, reaction time, shot-specific recovery time, how badly you can beat your buddies, because that's one of the best parts. You can compete across the United States with anybody who has a Train Shot or specifically with your friends. Guys, this is one of the funnest ways to drill and shoot. The ammunition savings alone covers the cost of the unit itself, and of course, all you have to do is download the simple app. Train Shot is one of my favorite products for 2021. Get yours today. Go to trainshot.com. Again, that's trainshot.com. And here's what's great. If you get this from the Gauge, use their promo code for a special treat. Use promo code free ammo to get 1 box. That's 50 rounds of 9mm MagTech, 115 grain FMJs. And these aren't cheap reloaded junk, guys. This is good stuff. Again, that promo code is free ammo at trainshot.com when you purchase your Train Shot.
This is The Gauge with host Chance Conradu.
Are you freaking serious? It's Conrado. This is The Gauge, and I am Chance Conrado. On this episode of the podcast, we get political as f***. We've got Luke Negron, who ran for Congress in 2020 in Pennsylvania's 18th district. He has a lot to say about a lot of things. And then a viral TikToker. Her name is Elizabeth Rogliani. Right? Yeah, I got it. She's going to be happy. I got her name right. Anyway, she was born and raised in Venezuela, and no surprise to anybody who knows what's going on in Venezuela, had to leave because their society completely collapsed. And so she went on Fox News and did things like that because she had some viral TikTok stuff where she was kind of raging out about the politics in the United States, rightfully so. Anyways, they're brilliant, way smarter than me. You'll pick up on that immediately.
But it was an awesome time. He flew out from Philadelphia, and she flew out from Miami, and we got into it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, you kind of
Nice.
ruined the inconspicuous let's start thing. You've been doing that lately, messing that up.
Well, because you keep starting whenever I'm not ready.
You're supposed to just be ready. You should be able to read my mind by now.
Have all the controversial questions just like
I have to
ready to
set it
fire off
The
as soon as
monarchy
people
thing
walk
is not
in.
like fully polished, so I'm just going to
It's
ask
okay.
you about
My
that.
my answer's not fully polished either. I'll think through it out loud.
It's one of those conversations that pops up on my Telegram chats. Monarchies,
Interesting.
all this type of thing.
Yeah.
One of these days it's going to come back in like an attack ad in like some political like race. Someone's going to be like,
Yeah, like,
Luke
he
Negron
wants
calls
some-
for monarchy. Like,
Next time,
oh no,
Exactly why.
next time you run for office, it's like, well, that ended that race really quick.
we can thank Elizabeth for torpedoing that.
That's why I don't want to ask it on here.
Luke
No, that's
Negron,
fine.
a.k.a. Henry VIII. What'd you do to your last 3 girlfriends?
brutal, but hilarious. No, I mean the short answer is I'll talk about anything. And when it comes to like theories and conspiracy theories, I have a really simple and consistent standard, which is like, give me evidence and I'll listen to anybody. Like, so if someone walks up to me and says like, Donald Trump's an alien from outer space, I'm like, do you have any evidence? They're like, no. I'm like, stop wasting my time.
Okay.
But if they say Donald Trump's an alien from outer space and here's a bunch of evidence that I put together, I'm like, I'll hear you out.
Well, okay, whoa,
like,
whoa.
give me the evidence. Like you know,
Is it the hair? The skin tone? We don't see a lot of Americans with that skin tone.
That's true. That's true.
Some fruit.
The skin tone is questionable at best. I actually had the president of the college that I attended was a spray tan, a very addict, I guess, and he had a skin tone much like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
It's the only two
get
I've
it.
ever seen. It's brutal though.
It's Palm Springs. I get it.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, if it gets too pasty or pale, I would probably consider doing it. You know, about this
I would
time of
probably.
year.
I think I'd just move. I would just move to the tropics rather than getting the spray tans. I just go somewhere and actually lay out like
Yeah,
on a real
you
beach.
and everybody else from the area you're living in, stop moving to
Yes,
Florida,
that is true. That's we were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this your
Northerners.
natural tan?
Yeah, this is like my northern tan. Haven't been outside for like 8 months because of politics and because it's cold as anything in northern America right now, which Pittsburgh I think kind of qualifies for.
Yeah, you don't see the sun much,
No,
probably, huh?
no, like a couple hours a day when you factor in like the clouds in the morning and then the clouds that are inevitably there interchangeably during the day. You get a little bit of sun every day. It's almost like Alaska. We'll just say it's Alaska. I mean.
Yeah, minus the wolves and grizzly bears.
Yes, yeah. We have our own wolf though. Good old Tom Wolf is our wolf. That's a political comment. That's our governor who is more dangerous than any Alaskan wolf. I'd say probably more deadly. If you're an old person being sent to nursing homes in PA, definitely more deadly.
That whole
That's
upper
a shot right
New
there.
England area, all of those governors are kind of that same mindset.
They're terrible. They're pretty awful. Yeah.
I love how the narrative has changed so much on COVID and lockdowns.
Yes.
And I don't know how much you follow California, but I mean, I guess Cuomo did the same thing. But it's like, oh, all of a sudden, open everything up.
good.
I'm
It's
against
good.
lockdowns.
Yes.
I'm like, do you people who voted all these people into office not
Notice.
see through this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys notice on like Facebook, Instagram? This is gonna be very political, Ty. Just so you know. This is the only purpose of this podcast.
I learned that quick.
Ty has a different view from the rest of the people in the room.
Oh, really?
Which
I'll
adds
debate.
a nice layer.
No, that's good. I
wow.
actually,
That's nice.
you should add in because I love hearing opposing viewpoints.
Yeah.
I also love hearing where opposing viewpoints agree.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Continue. You were saying.
Well, yeah, and I mean, actually, I don't even remember because I got so distracted by his political viewpoints and how they don't align with
He's over
my
there
own.
like rolling
I'm
his
just
eyes.
wearing a shirt that says political viewpoints.
You know what's nice though about like us is like I've never broke the windshields of your car or anything.
Yes. Yes.
I never broke yours either.
Right.
You know what? I think I'm for socialism now because
Oh, no.
I think you deserve some of Ty's pay, Riley. I think I do.
You
too.
get paid more than me.
This is a real world exercise of socialism.
It is.
No, I think honestly, I think it's cool that you guys work together and are friendly, even though you have competing viewpoints. That's
more of a
awesome.
monarchy.
Yes.
Yeah.
For being honest.
I'm a pro.
Here we go. Here we go.
If you're for a monarchy, you actually walked into one. I'm able to make these
Yes.
jokes because I'm the monarch.
Hey, within a business structure, I don't think that's such a bad thing. I think
It's not like
And
that
a family
here.
as well.
yeah.
Everybody gets and these guys can attest to it. Everybody gets to put in input
Yes.
at the gauge. It's not like that, but
What-
if it had to be, it would be.
Well, you're a good monarch then.
For now.
A wise monarch.
Wait,
Yes. Yeah.
I thought Dustin's the monarch. What are you? I think you're the prince.
He's the prince. He's
I'm the
up and
prince.
coming. There's
I don't
that's
know.
a good
It's
position.
It's a 50-50 business. Is there two monarchs?
I don't know, but you perked up at the word prince. You're like, I'm
it carries a lot of positive connotation.
Don't
with
worry,
it, I
we'll
think.
be
Yeah,
a
Like,
tiara.
and it goes across genres. It's like, is it ever bad? It's not bad.
No.
Yeah, it'd be
yeah.
better if I had my good side when you said that, but I don't.
We'll give you a tiara. Don't worry.
A tiara?
This podcast, I'm going to be turning the whole time, and then I'll rewatch it and try and find my good side. Now that this is like a topic, I'm going to be like, left side, right side. Okay, there's the
Yeah.
camera.
You'll find it eventually.
yes.
Yeah.
I
I'll
think
work
the
on
thing
it.
is that everybody's face is like not quite perfectly aligned.
Exactly.
Right, symmetrical. Yes.
Yeah,
I've
so
seen
whatever.
those where like everyone, you cut it down the middle in like Photoshop, and it's
Yeah.
always very different.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah. And in reality, we all look like Sloth from the Goonies.
Yeah.
We just don't realize it.
How does it work when you look at yourself in the mirror and it looks symmetrical, but if you look at a photo, it doesn't?
Yes.
How does that happen? Does our eye, like maybe our eyes adjust?
You ever wear a baseball cap, take a picture of yourself with the iPhone, and the hat's off center for some reason?
Huh. Actually, no, but I feel like I love baseball caps, but I can never get them to look good. Maybe that's why. Maybe
Really?
it's always off center.
Grab
Yeah.
him a gauge hat, see if he looks good in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is this like a 10-gallon hat or like an actual baseball
baseball
hat?
No, it's a baseball cap.
Yeah, 10-gallon hats are not a real thing.
Yeah, I know. I never really got that because no hat looks like it can hold 10 gallons of liquid. I feel like that's where it came from, right? Is like you could put 10 gallons of water in
Yeah.
upside
More
down.
one of those like ironic titles.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like the giant guy who does like wrestling, but you call him tiny. It's that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
it's
Yeah,
not really
that's fair.
10 gallons.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. So I like them backwards. I'll show you how I usually wear hats here. I have to take off this. So I wear them like this. I feel like I look better with hats
Wait,
backwards.
you're from New Jersey.
Jersey and then moved to Pittsburgh in
Say no more.
2012.
That's why
yeah,
you wear your
yeah.
hair like
so
that.
so that's the Jersey Shore in me.
I
and
wear
then
the-
when
I
I
wear the
put
same
it on
way.
like this, I feel like I just look goofy. I don't know.
What?
You look like a normal person.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
No,
we're
baseball
the
cap
same
person.
on this.
Yeah?
I wear my hats backwards. I don't wear them forward.
Good. Okay. I'll
Wait,
wear this
put it
backwards
on
for the
backwards for
podcast,
this.
right? I think.
There you go.
I think backwards is just this. Actually, this hat fits very nicely.
With you look like a construction worker with the denim shirt and the backwards hat.
You guys are interviewing just anyone off the street now. Not that
Yeah.
I used to be a construction worker, but you just grabbed a construction worker off the street.
Yeah. From Pittsburgh. We couldn't find one in Texas.
a state-funded construction worker from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Time to get this thing back on track. I warned
Yeah,
you.
No,
back,
I wanna-
back to politics.
I
So
warned
are
you that this
we-
would be how it goes.
I was
Back to
enjoying
Are we
controversy.
even recording right now? Are we filming?
We have been recording for quite a while.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Luke, seriously,
Okay.
should everyone vote? Because I don't think everyone should.
Okay, so there is an idea in the founding of Americanism that that landowners or business owners should be the only ones to vote. Now that idea comes with some negative connotations historically because it comes from a time when also only white men could vote, so women out and any minorities out. However, if we can separate those two ideas and say there might be something to the idea that the people with the most to lose, businesses and land and property, should be the ones to vote in an equal society like what we have today, where anyone can own it, any ethnicity, any sexual orientation, any gender. I think there's an argument to be made. I don't think I would ever push for that transition in modern America.
You'd never be
But-
able to push for that.
No.
No, it's not something I would ever like bang the drum for. But when I hear people voice that opinion, I understand and I respect a lot of what they're saying.
Okay.
Because I think there's a real argument to be made that like people will always vote for what gets them more money. A lot of mid 1900s conservatives talked about this. I believe Reagan did. So if I am not a landowner or a business owner and I can vote for someone who will give me more free stuff from the landowners and business owners who, by the way, build society, who build the economy, who build the jobs, who bring in the prosperity, who bring in the technological advancements, I'm going to vote that. I'm going to screw those people to get into their pockets and get their money. And should I be allowed to do that? That's a pretty good argument. I don't think we could ever get there. I'm not sure that I love all of the factors that go into that situation.
Right.
but
I
those
mean,
are
we
kinda
could
my
find
thoughts.
just a little bit of middle ground, though, right? Like maybe we just start with you have to have an ID.
Yeah.
Maybe we start
Right.
there.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
which I don't.
That would be a good start.
In a modern society, having an ID to vote in the freest, most prosperous country in the world
Yes.
makes probably that the fact that we even have to say that out loud is
Yes.
silly, right? Like,
Should be
why
so
would that even be a
bipartisan.
topic? And we know why it's such a partisan idea, because unfortunately the people who benefit from non-voter ID votes are the current,
Yeah.
the current
Power
people in
structure.
power.
Yeah.
Right.
And the area that you come from, not so much you, because you're in Florida, but you are actually, you're in Dade County, I think, right? In
Yeah.
Miami. So of course that's one of the hubs of, liberalism in Florida for obvious reasons. But by and large, where you're at, you're surrounded by that idea.
Yes.
Right? We're not so
Yes.
much here. She's not so much where she's from. She can find a collective where she's at, and of course we can here. You, on the other hand, I mean, you're literally in a place where you're probably in the most corrupt place in the United States, as a whole.
I mean, most people
Probably
actually
more than California.
It's very corrupt. I mean, PA has been the target of, in a bipartisan way, some real questions about corruption in this election. I've talked to a lot of left-leaning individuals who are like, I've got questions about Georgia and Arizona, but PA is the real one that we're all kind of like, what's going on here? I will say, though, the people of PA outside of the cities, Harrisburg, Philly, Pittsburgh, the people are great people. And even within those cities, they're great people. It's just that there are these ideologies that have kind of come in and taken over the cities, and then thus they run the state.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're looking kind of the birth of American industrialism is right in that hub.
Yeah.
And you look at Chicago, you look at Philly, you look at Detroit, you look at these places, they've been under the same leadership
Yeah.
for, 3, 4, 5 decades, some point, more than, getting close to a century in some areas.
Yeah.
And you see the largest denigration of a society in those places.
Right. Detroit's the classic example, right? Where you're like, you've been electing the same people here for decades on end, and they are killing your neighborhoods, your economy, everything. So maybe try something new, but
how do you
no,
turn it
somehow,
around?
how do you get that message out there
the
in the
level
modern day?
of work that it would take to turn that around, the quality of person, that's a tough thing to say, but at least my opinion, the quality of person who runs for office in those places, they're not doing it to fix anything. They're doing
Yes.
it to line their pockets
Opportunity.
and set themselves off.
Yep.
I mean, there's a reason that politicians, and this happens on the right just as much as the left, are bought and paid for by lobbyists. I mean, that's how this political structure has been set up. And it's so far gone that without a mass amount of citizen intervention, I mean, clearly conversation doesn't do enough, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what has to be done to try to correct these things, but we're in a strange place. And you're part of a group of a very young group of people who ran for office. Some succeeded, some unfortunately were not able to. I mean,
Came
I saw
in second place.
Yeah, well, and I saw some interesting things on your social media, because, like I said, we've been social media pen pals for several months now, talking
Yeah.
about doing this, and since before the election, and there were instances where your name wasn't even on the ballot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And so speaking of ballots and ballot access, kind of Elizabeth and I are in unique shoes here, because we are both minorities and she's an immigrant and I'm a second generation American, meaning all of my grandparents are immigrants. So regarding ballots, there's this really weak argument that, right, to show ID in order to vote is racist.
Right.
And I love being able to walk out and be like, nope, I don't agree. Like, not for my community, not for my ethnicity. Nope. I need to show ID to buy beer, to get into an amusement park. Why can I vote for American leaders without an ID?
Isn't that very demeaning, though, to say that this group of people can't
Get an ID. Right.
If
Yeah,
they can't get an ID, they shouldn't be voting. Maybe.
It's racism
Yes.
at its highest level, being, it's a decoy.
Yes,
is what it
leveraged.
is.
Yep.
Yeah, complete and total racism. I mean, because you're literally, if you talk to an Hispanic immigrant, right? I've got Hispanic, people in my family as well, and the ones who had to go through what they had to go through to get to this country. I mean, you would know this very well.
Yes.
They pride themselves on those things.
Right.
I'm from a place where I don't even know how.
What's your last name from?
It's
Your last
Hispanic.
name? Yeah.
Morado.
Yeah.
That's what I
There
was
you go.
wondering. I mentioned it to my parents.
It's like, I don't know.
was
I said it to
Italian.
my parents, and they're like, "Oh, is he Venezuelan?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so."
Not Venezuelan. Although, I mean, God, Venezuela was pretty awesome before.
could
all
be.
this.
Right.
you could-
Before
yeah,
what?
it-
You
before.
could before
It's a
You can
whole-
get away with
2008
this face in
or-
Venezuela.
You
and
can,
be
yeah.
Venezuelan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Argentina too. You could get away.
Yeah, that
Very-
whole area.
I mean, no one
yeah,
would look
Colombia
twice.
too. Yeah, it's a great place. Those are all great places. It's terrible what's going on there.
Venezuela had a lot of immigrants from Germany. There was even a German colony near the capital city.
There's a lot of crazy things about all that go into all that too, which is awesome. And
German,
terrifying.
European architecture from like, I don't know, 1946. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
The 8th from the 19th century.
Yeah, exactly. Which, okay, I think we've been kind of rambling, which is great. This is great
Yes.
stuff. But no, it's not rambling at all. But we're talking without people knowing who you guys are from
Right.
the
Yes,
audience.
yes.
No,
So-
this part,
Here we go.
Luke,
Okay.
who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah. So okay. I was gonna say ladies first, but I'll go first. I'll take the bullet for you.
Thank you.
Typical
So
Jersey guy. He just shut the door on you.
so I grew up in Jersey. Moved to Pennsylvania in 2012 for college, and stayed. And through there, though, Pennsylvania kind of became my hub. I traveled a lot with the Air Force. So I'm still in the United States Air Force. As I said earlier, I am a second-generation American, so the descendant of 4 immigrants, all of whom had some kind of negative exposure to and experience with socialism and communism. They fled, whether it was Russia or Cuba or the influence thereof. They fled, and that kind of is a big part of who I am and why I am who I am. And then fast forwarding, grew up, joined the Air Force, became a political activist, studied politics professionally, interned, all that jazz, build the resume, all that good stuff. And then I saw an opportunity in 2020 for young people and Washington outsiders to get involved. I saw a real desire in a bipartisan manner for that. And so I did. So I ran for PA 18, became the Republican nominee for Congress. And I feel like it's always worth tacking on here that even though I ran as a Republican, we run in a two-party system. We exist in a two-party system. I believe that there's a
By and
spectrum.
large, yeah.
By and large, right? There's a spectrum, really, of R's and D's. And I don't believe just having an R next to your name makes you a good guy. I've said that throughout the campaign, and I will say that to the grave. So then I ran against a career elitist, a 30-year or almost 30-year incumbent named Mike Doyle. And as I said earlier, I came in second, but I'm looking to stay involved. So that's kind of that's my story to date.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much surrounding that just ties directly in with what was going on politically in PA at that time. And
Yes.
you were there. You got to meet Trump. He mentioned you many times. Was rallying behind you, backed you in your race.
Yeah, that was cool.
And you got to kind of see firsthand exactly what he was talking about because it happened to you directly on these ballots.
Yes. Yeah. So you mentioned that. I'll breeze through that scenario. So basically, starting election night, my team and I got letters, DMs, emails, various forms from people around my district saying, in short, hey, man, Mike Doyle, your Democrat opponent, was on our ballot and you were not. Your name was not there. The only option was a write-in candidacy, was a blank spot that said write in a candidate. And I was like, this is, the first one, I was like, who cares? I lost it. It's over. And then it happened again and again and again. I was like, this is crazy. So then I didn't want to become that guy who just makes he said, she said claims.
Right.
So I was like, let's get legal sworn affidavits that are notarized. I don't want to just come out and say some guy told me. So now, long story short, I have sworn affidavits. I also have dozens of written statements that are from people who either we couldn't contact in person or we couldn't get to them to get official sworn statements, but they did send in written statements. So yeah, whether it's error or fraud, there are some real questions to be asked about this nonsense going on.
Yeah. Well, and kind of the troubling thing for me, and I think even if you are a liberal person, it should trouble you, is how quickly it was dismissed.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like just no. It was just a firm no from the powers that be that no one really truly understands.
That's right.
And it was just a firm no. And like, no, this didn't happen.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep. Baseless claims, right?
Baseless
and like
claims.
no evidence is what they
It's
say.
really surprising to me as I feel like sometimes I'm a outside observer because I haven't been participating in the political process of the United States for, just recently I started kind of observing it, and I never imagined it was so bad. I couldn't have expected it because I grew up in Caracas in Venezuela, and I sort of got accustomed to how messy it was and how much of a circus it was.
Well, it
when
was
comes to-
interesting in Venezuela, right? Because
Yeah.
there were so many different views because the people loved Chavez, right? They loved him. He was a man of the people,
Yeah.
as they say. Now, granted, that's an American's view on what they're seeing. It may be different if you're from Venezuela, but if you're an American businessman or you kind of looked at Venezuela, right? You're like, well, hang on, how can this entire country be leveraged on oil like this and people just are okay with it? Like how can it be? Like, look at the history of oil. This guy completely leveraged the entire country and all these socialist ideals, which there's an argument that he thought he was doing it for the people. Obviously, that wasn't really the case. He was looking at Cuba and talking to Cuba.
It's a complicated story.
It is, yeah. And of course, you can tell it better than me. But to kind of paint the picture for our listeners, I'll say it. I mean, you left Venezuela, and you got to watch the country you were born in collapse.
Yeah.
And now you're in another country where you're seeing trends that match that.
It's like, oh shoot, deja vu.
But the more interesting aspect for me is how fast it's happening. You know, how suddenly people are getting arrested for saying something on social media, and how openly there are politicians saying we should collect list of supporters of this side. And I just can't believe I'm watching this play out in just months' time.
Yeah.
You know, when it just feels like the goalposts got moved so quickly. It's really unbelievable to watch. And I don't know how anyone can see this and not have a light bulb go off in their head, especially in 2020.
Well, and if you look at the executive orders that were signed on day one, no president in the history of the entire country has signed that many. Even Obama only signed 5.
Yeah.
Right? And
17 for Joe, right?
No, 19.
19.
Yeah. And people who voted for Joe may be rolling their eyes, but by and large, they're quiet right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and
or are they even paying attention?
Well, they maybe not. I mean, like, our guy won. We're great. The whole world's perfect. But
right.
If you
we're united, it's good.
Let's unite, guys.
If you get enamored with politics or specific politicians and you follow Joe Biden's career, I mean, and go back to the mid to late 70s. It's a totally different human.
Yes.
And he was terribly messed up back then. Still bought and paid for. He's always has been. I mean, the fact that the Hunter Biden stuff got completely swept under the rug and didn't get covered at all.
It's like you're not even allowed to talk about it.
You're not even allowed to talk about it.
Don't even go there, you know?
And you can't even talk to a supporter about it. She'll be like, oh, no, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. I was like, no, actually it was.
Yes.
Actually, it truly was that, but it doesn't matter. No one cares.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, you can talk to Ty about it, and he's not worried about it. I mean, he was more worried that Trump was more, and I think that's the biggest interesting factor is.
But why is that an issue, though? Why is that an issue that? But why do you see it as an issue for something that was no evidence that Rudy Giuliani couldn't even find on him? But why isn't it an issue that I have issue that Trump was doing such more corrupted things in office than I was about a presidential candidate's son that had no communication, adult son that had nothing to do with him?
It's because of the cover-up, right, from the father who set it up for the son, right? So this is the guy we're voting in.
Where's the evidence, though? I'm going to go with Luke's thing. Give me the evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there is a lot of evidence from Joe Biden's own mouth and from correspondence between him and his son that is, I'll throw in the word allegedly, right, on the laptop, because a lot of that does deserve to be investigated further. But I'll say it deserves to be investigated further to be proven, and it's not being investigated for, like, people are turning a blind eye to it. And when a mainstream news source publishes an article saying essentially what I just said, hey, we need to look into this stuff, and then they get banned from Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. The initial breaking article that made these claims and said, let's dig, let's do investigative journalism, was immediately shut down. I think that raises some huge red flags where people can and should say, wait a second, why can't we talk about this? Like if this was Don Jr. or Eric Trump, I would similarly say, I hope that they're innocent, but let's investigate and let's find the facts. But that's not what we heard from the left. The left said, don't even talk about it.
Well,
and that's the difference.
And
to
I think, Ty, even you have to acknowledge that there is a huge amount of exactly what he's saying happening on the left, right? You're not allowed to question it. You're just not. You're not allowed to question it. And if you do, you get buried, you get shut down. And we saw
I will say that other news organizations went and did other investigating on that laptop and found there was nothing behind it. That this laptop went between 3 different people, including some blind guy that it had no idea what he was handling.
Okay, I'm gonna say 2 statements: Russia collusion and 3 years of impeachment attempts. Yeah, was that any different? You're gonna say it's different.
Guess what party tried to impeach Biden on day 1?
Why do you think that is?
Was there a push to impeach Biden?
Yeah,
I missed this.
There's only
Marjorie Taylor
a
Greene from
precedent.
Florida tried to impeach Biden on day one.
Did it have legs,
precedent.
or was it?
No, it didn't. It was one person.
Yeah, one. I mean, that's a bit of a disingenuous
but-
example. If it was like half of the
I'm
House,
just saying.
I would
I'm just
agree.
saying.
But yeah, no, that's
But what I'm saying is, if you can make all those statements about Hunter Biden, then you also have to be able to say, hey, because it was proven time and time and time again that there was no Russian collusion on Trump's behalf. And I think you would have to be giving Trump at that time a lot of credit to even think that he would be able to collude with Russia. You know what I mean? I mean, to go in to say something like that about somebody who came from Trump's background into doing that, saying that he colluded with Russia, and then it was proven not false, or not true, false, a bunch of false negative, or a bunch of false positives. So much so that, I mean, dude, this should bother you because
All right, hold on.
Every person in this room's tax dollars got wasted to the
All right,
tune of
look, here's another
millions of
thing that your tax dollars got wasted on. How many days of Benghazi trials were there about Hillary and her emails? Benghazi that had nothing to do with her, at least. How many days and tax dollars were wasted on that
Didn't
investigation?
Benghazi have a lot to do with Hillary Clinton? Let's think about that.
But
for a
again,
second
so if
before
you
we
want to
make a
say
statement where people lost their
but
lives.
if you want to say Trump 3 years of impeachment, Benghazi was the same thing with Hillary. That happened for how many years?
maybe right. So I think there are two separate topics here. One is Benghazi, right, and people essentially saying, isn't Hillary partially responsible for the death of Americans and the failure to respond to Benghazi? Honestly, I haven't looked into that deep enough to tell you the facts around it and whether or not she's definitely directly responsible.
I'm the same with you, but I'm just saying the
emails,
trials.
the emails I have looked into, and the emails, I think it's fair to say, as a military member, if I did that, or if any of my friends or brothers did that, we would be at the least dishonorably discharged. At worst, we'd be in military prison.
Also, let's look at Ivanka Trump, who also was using her own personal email in office when she was working for the White House
for restricted information.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, investigate it. I'm not against investigate. I'm not against finding the facts and finding the truth. What I'm really against is silencing investigative journalism or anything confidential.
Especially for one side specifically.
Yes, when the silencing always favors one side, I think we have a real problem here. I'm not against holding people accountable.
Either side. I mean, if you think that one of the most corrupt administrations to ever exist wasn't the Bush administration both times, then you're silly.
Yep.
You know, this isn't about party lines.
W was not great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that his dad was a one-term president and that he might be the most disliked president behind Nixon. You know what I mean? I mean, truly. But that's the problem. It's easy when you're on the side that's able to shut everybody up.
Yes.
Right? You can say, and you can give this ultimatum clause where you're racist, you're this, you're that. Or what about this? What are Trump, mean? And then there's nothing someone on the opposing side can really say to you because you know what follows if you argue it too much.
Agreed. This is actually something I want to hear more of Elizabeth's like kind of. I'm gonna bring you back to your intro, even though you're trying to dodge it.
You are trying to dodge it.
Because
you're trying to get away from telling people who you are.
It's very interesting.
Are you on a list of some kind?
I am.
She probably is on some Venezuelan list, but it's interesting because she can speak. What's that quote? Like, a man with an experience or a woman with an experience, right, always defeats a man with a theory. And so, like, you can speak from experience about what it looks like when you have a one-sided takeover of communications, of the story that's told, of investigations. And so that's some of your background, I guess. Give us more about that. Because I love talking to Venezuelans because, like, they grew up with us. They're our age, and they went through this. We think of this as, like, USSR stuff. It's not. It's modern, right? Like,
It just happened. Like 4 years.
Right. I feel like time is moving way too fast because this is not supposed to happen multiple times within one lifetime of a person. But anyway, I'll do the intro thing. So I grew up in Caracas, Venezuela. I have a big family. Like, if things were fine still there, I'd probably be still there. I had a great life. But eventually it became very clear that none of us had a future. So I went to college here in the United States, in Boston specifically. I studied international affairs and political science. Not necessarily because I wanted to be in politics, but I felt like my life had somehow revolved around politics, and that was something that I was always talking about, so it only felt natural to study it. But I did graduate, and eventually I became exhausted with paying attention to politics. Venezuela it came to a point that I felt like there was nothing to be done. You know what I mean? It felt like I watched my country try again to get rid of, you know, this regime that we have, and it was failing. And we had like a big protest in 2014 where I was very hopeful because we didn't have Chavez at that point anymore. We didn't have that man who was the charismatic personality behind that revolution. So I felt like maybe this time we'll be able to accomplish something, but they were really cemented at that time. So I sort of took a step back with my life. I said, you know what, I need to not pay attention to politics. It can be very toxic.
Yeah, and tiring.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Getting burnt out. Yeah, that's so real.
And then I graduated. I went into the world of film and acting. So I moved to LA for a little bit. Eventually, I became tired of it, and I started looking for a new way. In New York, I was working in the travel industry because I do like the travel industry. But 2020 turned my life around completely. I had always been interested in politics regardless. I've sort of paid attention to Trump's rise in popularity. I didn't like him at first, I have to say, but then
That's an interesting factor to your story.
Yeah.
That's how we first met, because she made a TikTok. Sorry to interject here, but it's very, and I think it's noteworthy for someone like Ty too. Like Elizabeth is someone who admittedly drank the Kool-Aid about Trump, right? Like watched the media and was like, yeah, screw this guy.
I'll explain why.
And then you dug in and
it's embarrassing.
it changed, right?
Well, let's be real. There's probably a lot of things that, even though we are technical, or were at one time, it's not a thing anymore. We're like Trump supporters. And for me, it's like it's someone who has multiple businesses and understands commerce and understands how, you know, got civics, for God's sakes. I don't even teach that. Like, if you have any understanding of those things, you understand why we were voting for Trump, right?
Yeah.
It's not because we necessarily like him as a person. And that's the problem. If you vote against somebody because you don't like their Twitter, I don't like you because you say mean things, like, hold on, you have to go deep into policy to understand who you're voting for, which is why it's easy to back up, like, hey, maybe this certain sect of people shouldn't vote because they'll never do that.
Yep.
You know, they're just going to be like, oh, they said what I like, and then they're going to vote that down a ticket.
Yes.
You know, I think we can all admit that we voted for somebody before on a ballot, not knowing anything about who they are, especially on the local level, which is where you should be paying the most attention. Yeah. 100%. I'm guilty of this. I was like, there's an R, him. For all
Must
I know,
be a good guy.
For all I know, he could have been a convicted serial killer. I didn't look into it. I just voted with what where my dogma aligned, which is the worst thing you can possibly do when you're voting.
Or even worse, where you thought your dogma aligned.
Exactly.
It's like multiple levels of removal from reality.
I must explain myself first.
Go ahead.
I had the opinions I had about Trump because I paid attention to mainstream news. I didn't realize the amount of partisanship that was present in the news. I thought, when I decided, you know what, I'm going to see what's happening in the United States, the country where I'm living, and see how they handle politics. Because to me, politics in the U.S. was very boring, and that's not nothing bad. I thought that was good. That meant stability.
I wish we could be boring.
Yeah. And then in 2016, everyone was going crazy, so I decided to pay some attention. I just didn't realize how much the media was manipulating people. That's something I came to the conclusion later. I believe the freedom of the press in the United States, how, I believe there was real journalism here. I came to realize later that was just not the case, but that's how I got duped initially. Unfortunately, it came to a point that I started, it was the culture that came to me first when I started feeling that there was something wrong with the culture. People were saying to me, like, well, you should think this because you're a woman. Why don't you think this? And I was like, no.
This is how women vote. Like, this is how Hispanics vote. This is how women vote.
Or
and
and
like
then
a preset.
It wasn't not only voting, it was just other social issues that I just disagreed with.
Yeah.
And I thought there was something going on in the culture, and then eventually that led me down this rabbit hole, which led to politics, and that really made the switch for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, and it makes a lot of sense because you're not the only person with that story, right? If somebody digs deep, like really deep, you end up finding out things that completely misalign with what you think you knew, or think you thought you knew, right? And I think that's how you come to some like political enlightenment, right? When you realize that there's an entire veil around the entire system. Yeah. Right? There's a huge veil around the entire system, and it's totally designed to fool every single average American into happily signing over their tax dollars to
on both sides. Right. Like
hey, if you go back far enough, I mean, the Republican Party might be they're pretty guilty of these things on a systemic level. I mean, they truly are.
Yes.
But, I mean, then you go farther back and, you know, there's this little period of time that kind of created this idea that the Democratic Party was for the people, by the people, 100%. You know, they were the protect your rights, protect freedom of speech, because they were for a minute. But right before that, they were the party of the KKK. Yeah. And then right after that, now we're where we are today. So there was this small period of time where you might have attached to this idea of liberalism that doesn't exist anymore.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I would have considered myself back in those days to be probably liberal. I mean, if you're a classic liberal, that's not a bad thing to say if you know what that means.
Yeah, a few months ago, I considered myself a classic liberal. Now I don't anymore.
Yeah. I think
because it's dead. That doesn't exist.
It is.
It's not a thing.
In the West, right. And when you think of classical liberalism, you can and should think of freedom, of like something that an informed hippie might be a fan of, right? Where they're like,
70s,
hey, just let people live, let people, you know, say what they want to say and go where they want to go. And you're like, okay, maybe in a classical sense.
To say about that.
You know, it's just, I agree. I used to agree with that.
Yeah.
Not long ago. I've really gotten down this rabbit hole, and going down rabbit holes really fast can get you feeling very lonely very fast, because suddenly you don't align with the people that you just like maybe a few months ago you did.
Yes. Yeah.
But I used to think, just let people do whatever they want. Like that's not going to affect you. But the problem is that it does affect you.
It does. Yes.
If people are doing whatever they want, and you descend into this sort of chaos and degeneracy, people tend to pull you down with them because they don't want to see you over the top. Or say, for example, you have a group of friends and a couple of them start doing drugs, and you know, whatever, they're just doing whatever they want. Let them do their thing. But because when you go into those types of behaviors, you want other people to join them, join you, because you know you're doing something wrong. So you try to pull those who aren't with you to
get some validation, some social proof.
Some validation. So you are dragging society down by everyone doing whatever the heck they want.
No, I agree. I think all I'm saying is that I think they're like levels of bad, and that level of classical liberalism is less bad than what liberalism has become today.
Well, it's the idea,
which is really authoritarian.
Because the idea of what a classical liberal is to help everybody, save everybody. So the idea is pure, right? It's just like if you look at Marxism, it's like that freaking pipe dream of an idea. Maybe he thought that was a good idea. But it's failed in every single country they've ever attempted it, and they're still trying to sell it wholesale to every single American who will take that hook. Free college, welfare for all, socialized medicine, like all these things. And like somebody's going to go, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. This is going to fix my life. No, dude, you know what's going to fix your life? Why don't you get a fregging pick up a damn shovel and get a job and work your way up?
Exactly.
Figure your shit out and stop. And this is an explicit podcast.
Right.
Just so to let you guys know. But
triggered.
Something I've discovered by being pushed into Telegram. I don't know if you guys have been pushed there as well. Because they're banning us from everywhere. I'm still on Instagram, but I am exploring Telegram as well. And you end up in all these chats. And some of them are more radical than others. And you start finding out how people really think. And I've noticed that the people that are really to the right are not for Trump. And they're also socialist. But they're not socialist like you would expect them to be. They're national socialists. They're ethno-socialists. It's a completely different thing. So they believe if you are in a society with your own same people that have the same religion and same race, you can do socialism.
Interesting.
But you can't do it in a diverse society, which
like
I
what
agree
America
with.
is.
Socialism doesn't work in a diverse society because everyone has their own customs and thoughts and ideals.
But it doesn't work in any society.
I was just going to say, right? I think you could stop the statement
unless you've got a
socialism
population of 1 million people
Very small.
with a ton of economical resources and maybe 5 leaders, it's never going to work.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree with that.
work.
But they believe that. And they're more of the
Interesting.
far right. They're actually the far right.
Yeah.
So the far right and the far
Alt-right
left touch each other.
Alt-right, as they call them. Yeah.
And
exactly.
What it is,
They
it's
touch
actually
each
a
other.
circle, right?
Yeah.
This political sphere, the reason it's called a sphere, it's a circle.
Right, we treat it like these wings, right? Like
We do, but
way over
it's
here
a
or way over
political
here.
sphere because it is an actual circle, right? And you've got the top half of the circle is people like us, normal American people who have a basic understanding that most people fall into, right? So you've got this circle, right? And you've got, we'll call this quarter of the circle is alt right, this quarter is alt left, and then everybody else who's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
They touch. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a guy. They look different, right? They say it a little differently, but they're the same people.
Exactly.
And it's the exact same thing in the actual party system who are representing us.
And this comes to a fact that people love to forget in modern history classes, which is that Hitler and the
They don't
Nazis.
teach history anymore.
Right, no, they don't. They not true raw
But they
history.
only teach about Hitler and the Nazis. They
Right.
don't teach about
But
the
even them, they
communists.
they teach about Hitler and the Nazis with limited detail.
Yeah.
Hitler and the Nazis were socialists. They were like the Nazi
that's
party.
not communism.
I
It was
say they
never
were ethno-socialists.
communism.
Yes, they were
Exactly.
ethno-socialists. So they,
Yeah.
They were never labeled as communism. No, that was
No.
Russia. That was Russia.
Yep. And so they believed what you're saying exactly. It's just that they had a few more specifics to the people they would apply it to.
Exactly.
But they had the socialist ideals. The Nazi Party in Germany was called the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. This was not some like right-wing extreme in what we think of in today's sense of like, oh well, you're
it was
a
left-wing
capitalist
ideals.
free market.
That's why they put the word worker in there.
Left-wing.
They
Yes.
did that because, by and large, it was the working man who supported Hitler at those
Yes,
times.
that's right.
And that's what I don't think anybody. We're about to the point where anybody who experienced that's going to be completely dead and gone, and we'll never actually know. I got the privilege to listen to Irving Roth, one of the people who was in Auschwitz, and he's one of the last living people who documented it. And I got I was able to sit there and listen to him talk about this, and it was one of the most enlightening experiences ever because we got firsthand. Granted, he's 90 years old, so I'm sure
That's
it's a little
amazing.
fuzzy, but he wrote it down. He documented it as he started to age and wrote the book, talking about it. My Brother something, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but could you look that up, Ty, what Irving Roth's book is called? Because I like to recommend it to people because it's, I'm not a crier for anything. I'm very calloused and things like that, but I cried at his story.
No shame.
He had his
No
tattoo, and I was like, this is unbelievable. How could you ever look at the world through this lens that people are now looking at it through if someone like that exists?
Yes.
Who can paint a picture for you on exactly what's happening. It may not they're not going to be murdering people in the streets probably
Yet.
but people might murder each other in the streets because of the resources will be gone. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you know this. Like, you're from Venezuela.
Right.
This is the modern day example of what a socialist ideology does to a population of living, breathing humans no different than us.
Exactly.
And what's happened to the people in Venezuela? They can't eat. They don't have water. Like, it's gone.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. But like, me and my family are fortunate enough to be able to sustain ourselves abroad, and I still have family there. But unfortunately, the majority of the people who put their faith in that government, they're the ones that are suffering.
They're stuck.
The people that knew, I would say more of the middle class and wealthier classes, they left.
Yeah.
Or they're still there and they're still able to sustain themselves.
Here's the
But
thing. They left to come here.
they left to come
There's
here.
nowhere for us to leave.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
They left
That's
to
why it
come
sucks
here
for
or-
her. I feel
or
like
Spain.
you come here and it's like, okay, well, now where do I go? You know?
Exactly.
Didn't think
That's
that maybe I thought like my grandkids would have to face the rise of socialism in America.
It's going very
but,
fast.
But now it's us.
I actually read something in a book recently saying that time is actually slowing down. And that means that for us, it feels like things are happening faster, and they are happening faster. So whatever used to happen before in a couple of
50
generations
years
or
or
a couple
something,
hundred years, it's going to happen in maybe 20 years for us. And I feel like we're going to see some major shakeups in the world. I mean, right now in Europe, in the Netherlands, there's a lot of protests that seem to be going the way of a civil war.
Isn't it strange how many Europeans were backing Trump during this whole thing?
Yeah.
I was shocked by that.
There seems to be a rise of nationalism in Europe just because of our rejection
Yes.
to globalism.
Well, look at what
and
happened in
secularism.
England.
Yeah, I was going to say England, Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, France, all of them. I mean, their societies have completely collapsed. I mean, they haven't collapsed. let's be
They're
real.
changing,
but
and
they've
they're
changed
feeling
a lot.
And people are feeling like they want to get back. They're retreating into their own identities and heritage. But because of what we are living through right now, I feel like they are not allowed to.
Yeah.
They're gonna be called xenophobes or racist or whatever
Interesting.
if they go that way.
Even if they just want to
Even if they just
refine
wanna-
their own culture, kind
Exactly.
of.
And I feel
Interesting.
like that's-
wow.
that
It's
should
not
be
even
how-
refine their culture; it's protect their culture.
protect
Yeah.
their culture
Yeah.
and their heritage. And I think that's why a lot of Europeans were supporting Trump, because they saw him as as a rise of nationalism and the Western culture. So if it happened here, it's gonna affect them as well.
Yes.
If the left rises here, then it's gonna affect them.
They're on
as
that
well.
same train.
Exactly, they're on the same train.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, heavy lies the crown, right? I mean, the United States is at the forefront of the entire world and kind of guides, the geopolitical structure of this planet. I mean, it truly does. And when you see it falling apart as quick as it has over love Trump, hate Trump, whatever. I mean, the amount of crap that started when Trump got in the office, no matter how much he was trying, it started this tidal wave of drama for the whole world. And it's gotten to the point where it was so bad. And I was like, dude, why could you not just stay off Twitter? You probably would have wanted for you to stay off Twitter. I mean, it seems logical. It's like
that was my one thing.
Yeah, I mean, you came here to quote unquote save the country from these things, but you couldn't stop ego boosting on Twitter to be able to maintain it. I mean, dude, I could be totally wrong. And girl, I say dude a lot. I'm sorry.
You're about to say dude.
That's okay.
I know. It's an American thing. And my hat's not even backwards.
Yeah.
But,
Come to Jersey.
Yeah. Come to Jersey.
Jersey.
Yeah, actually, I can't even say it. You don't even sound like you're from Jersey.
No, my accents, I've had people say it because I travel so much. Like I've lived in like LA, Texas, PA, and Jersey for extended periods of time. So my accent's weird. But sorry, you're talking about Twitter.
Yeah, my accent is weird too.
Well, yeah, I wonder, like someone like Ty maybe wouldn't have despised Trump so much if he didn't pull that stuff. Right?
Interesting,
Because it's interesting because Ty's a very I would say he's even fiscally conservative because he has a good understanding of economics, and I think you've even called yourself.
Balance.
I think you've called yourself fiscally conservative before.
I have.
Yeah.
I think maybe a lot of people wouldn't have despised Trump if the media have covered him fairly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but he just said dumb crap
and
to a large audience, and it gave people a lot of things to feed off of. It just take a few of those polarizing comments away, and maybe this outcome was different. But he opened up the door for somebody like Joe Biden and this administration to come in, and we're seeing in the first 10 days since he was put into office some pretty dramatic things.
Yeah.
And it's going to take, and that's just facts. I mean, that's nothing to do with if you voted for him or not. I mean, these are facts.
Right. It's like, look, you don't have to say whether or not you like the changes to acknowledge that these are drastic changes.
They're
like
drastic.
we were going this way and we did a 180.
Right.
Well, I'm going to say Trump did the same thing with Obama regulations as well.
But
he repealed the
order in his first.
Also, I'm going to say Joe Biden, any other president before Joe Biden didn't come into office in the middle of a pandemic.
Isn't it funny how Joe Biden was fervently attacking Trump and criticizing him, and now he's saying there's nothing we can do about it?
Yeah,
you have to admit that that's some bullshit. Twitter post, right? Attacking Trump for the way he handled it, and you know what I'm talking about. You've seen this, right? You guys have both seen this.
Yeah.
And then literally saying that there's nothing, and we could pull this up. I'm sure one of us could find it because it's floating around all over social media. But
close to verbatim, he says in the next few months we cannot change the direction of COVID, and we expect about 600,000 Americans are going to die. There's nothing we can do.
So again, this also goes back to where Trump, he inherited Trump's COVID response, which was horrid. Now there's over 400,000 Americans dead at the moment, and now Biden is trying, and his administration is trying to deal with that what he was handed to him. Essentially, adding on to what, let's say, Obama inheriting the recession in 2008. I'm just saying that's what he's inheriting here. And it come to a point where what the hell can he do at this moment? He's going to do what he can to fix what needs to be done, but it's going to take time and it's going to take some months. But going back to what I was mentioning before we went off this, I'm going to say Trump repealed Obama-era regulations as well in his time of office. This is not a new thing that...
Oh, no, absolutely.
This is not a new thing.
But I think Chance is talking about the rate, right? So like Trump
we're talking about two different things and whatever. But we'll restart.
I'm not sure.
I warned you guys, like, this is...
No, it's okay.
That's what's good about it is this is a perfect example of what's happening. And he's not all left. He's not far left at all. But he's very, very much against Trump.
Yes.
And his reasons... I mean, I can respect anybody's reasons for anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Doesn't mean they align with mine.
But if you can give me reasons and talk through why
we should be able to talk about it, which is what's missing, right? You can see it in this room. Like everybody agrees on a lot of things, and then he agrees with something a little bit different. But we're still able to function in this room. But our society can't do that, which I think Ty, you, me, you, we can all agree that that's the problem with the society is
Yes.
opposing viewpoints aren't allowed to exist in the same room.
I think the other issue, I'm curious what you guys think about this. And I was talking about this with someone else earlier, where people, whenever, at least when it comes to debates and anything about politics, people love to make it personal.
Yeah.
They love to make
Yeah.
personal attacks whenever it's really just should be opposing viewpoints that I don't disagree with you, but I'm not calling you a bad person. But that will, and this happens on both sides. But people just to make politics way too personal than it ever has been, that at least that I've seen in my life.
I agree. And I think this is actually somewhat unavoidable, even though I don't like it. And it's unavoidable in the sense that politics almost need to be redefined. Like, we almost need a new word for what is political and what is personal, religious, or moral, because politics have started to seep into every aspect of life. So, like, let's just say in the 1950s, we're arguing about global warfare and American involvement, or about tax rates. It's a lot easier to stay unemotional about those things, even though they matter, and I acknowledge that they matter, than it is when I'm challenging you on your sexual identity or your ability to practice your religion. Like, these things are quote unquote political now. And so that's part of the reason that people are like, don't talk to me about politics, because when I hear politics, I think you hate the fact that I'm a gay man, or you hate the fact that I'm a black man, or that I'm his, and it's hard to separate those two.
Well, and that goes back to media force feeding ideals, right? So no one, I feel like maybe technologically we're a lot smarter, but socially we're a lot stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I can't even, stupider is not even a word.
Yeah.
We're a lot less intelligent, socially than we've ever been.
I think stupider is a word.
It probably
Stupider is a great word.
Stupider. It just doesn't sound like a word. Look it up. Is stupider
that-
a word?
that's
Probably,
like,
not a word.
Here's one to
It's
bring
a
it to
comparative adjective.
bring it to Trump for
Is that Urban
Ty's
Dictionary?
benefit. Bigly, right? Bigly is a word that people say Trump used. Bigly is a word, and there's a theory that he's saying big league, like big league ball. He's saying like they're ripping us off big league. It's like huge. Or bigly is a word. So that's just your Trump trivia of the day.
Yeah.
He was correct.
Or maybe he was saying Wrigley, like Wrigley gum, because he's just a baseball
they're
fan.
ripping us off Wrigley.
I mean, my biggest issue is the media, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not even politics. It's the
media
media.
is huge now,
That
right?
and they work off dividing society.
Yes.
And of creating this culture of
Manufacturing scandal and racism and race baiting. Yeah.
manufacturing outrage.
And Fox News is just as as to blame as
It's like
CNN
people
or
finally woke up to
MSNBC.
that. Like,
look at what
2 months ago, they're like,
Look at what they did. They jumped as soon as they thought they were on the wrong side. They jumped before even the other news outlets did. It was like, I see what you did there.
Yep.
You'll never get my viewership.
This
again.
was Brutus and Caesar. Like, Brutus was ready to self-preserve and like,
well, and that's what people don't seem to understand about politics today is there's a lot of examples of it. Like, I actually don't mind Marco Rubio, but let's use Marco Rubio as an example. Do you know what his wife does for a living?
No.
She's a Democratic lobbyist.
Interesting.
How could they sit at the table for dinner together?
Yeah.
Unless there's something else going
they're
on.
enjoying the same wallet together,
Yeah.
Right.
There's a
Especially
reason
the same
he
coin.
sits like this, and then he gives her the wallet, and she sits like that. But there's a lot of examples of that in politics.
Wow.
There's stuff where I think it was Lindsey Graham and Kamala Harris bumping fists. It's
Yeah.
I thought you guys hated each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's a show. Like,
It is.
show.
Political theater. Yeah.
It is, that's what politics have always been. That's why Shakespeare made jokes about politics, wrote plays about it. Because it's always been a theatrical act.
What do you guys
the
think
elites.
of a third party emerging? Do you think it's useful?
You know what? I think it actually hurts. I think it hurts more than it does good because he's going to steal. This is what'll happen. He's not gonna empower people like us.
Right.
He's gonna steal a huge portion of, call them the Trumpers. Maybe that's 60 million people who. Okay, cool. You just split the party line.
Yep.
Right.
But you didn't do anything to the other side. You just put a nail in the coffin of what I would consider to be free American
completely agree.
thinking. It's a terrible idea.
I think that the path forward is to treat primaries like generals and target the rhinos politically and socially. So I mean, and that's me speaking as a conservative American first and a Republican second, right? So I believe
Republican by nature. I mean,
Right.
like you don't have a choice.
exactly,
really, because
by like process of elimination.
you have to, right?
It's like the only people that I dislike more than I dislike the GOP is like the DNC.
Well, exactly.
Like,
I mean, you're looking at two sides of the same coin, and it's like either you like the way the head side of the coin looks a little bit better because some of it aligns with what you think. But I mean, but we've seen the GOP shut people down the same way we've seen the DNC shut. I mean, look at the way they shut Tulsi Gabbard down.
Oh my gosh,
she made sense.
She made sense.
I could have probably voted for Tulsi.
if Tulsi was president today, I would be like,
Yeah.
I feel
Okay.
good.
I'll be
I
fine with
disagree
that.
with some things, but like,
veteran, common sense. There's a lot there, and they completely shut her down.
Yes, yes.
And who did she call bullshit on during those?
Hillary and Kamala.
Well, during the actual primary, she
yeah,
and in the next week she was done.
This is what drives me crazy about identity politics.
Yes.
That they're celebrating Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Even people that don't like her policies because she is the first female VP.
Right. Right.
Do they even realize what some of her big achievements are? You know, she was a. I will give her this. She was a badass prosecutor. If you just look down the list of how many people she freaking put away, damn.
Yeah.
Homegirl
but
did
it's
her
not
job.
about that. It's about the identity.
But I find it actually very
Most
sad.
people don't even know she was a prosecutor.
Yeah.
They don't even know
I
that.
find it very sad that the first female VP got her there because of her race and gender.
Yes.
She didn't get her there because of her merits.
Yes, it
She
should
got
be a
there
meritocracy.
Yeah, because of her political points that, you know, Joe Biden was going
which
to
is
get.
sexist.
Yes, yes,
It's sexist
exactly.
and
Right,
racist.
which is like, what did MLK say? Right, like there are a few historical figures like Lincoln and MLK who are like untouchable. Like no one wants to insult them, right? So I like to hearken back to them, right? Like Martin Luther King said that he has a dream that men will be judged not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. And now we have mainstreamers like Joe Biden saying, I promise to appoint a minority woman.
Yeah.
What is that if not judging someone on the color of their skin and their sex rather than content of character? Who cares? Tell me who's the best qualified. I don't need to hear gender, race, or anything else, or age.
No.
You know?
Yeah, and there's some amazing women in politics, but to overlook all of that, I mean, I feel like that's sexism. You know,
It is.
Somebody may disagree with that. Some people may shake their head, but I feel like that's sexism. I mean, like
Yes.
you don't even care what she's about or what she's done. You're just
Yes.
taking her because she represents what you think is going to get you votes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that at its core is sexism or racism. I mean,
Right.
it just is.
It is
You know,
actually.
if you delve deep into the definitions of what those things are.
This is like people voting for Barack Obama only because he's black, or voting against him only because he's black.
It's the same
Both of those are
concept.
racist. But both of those are racism. But we only call one of them racism in mainstream media.
Right.
And it's, oh, you voted against him, and it's probably because he's a black man and you don't want him. Well, what about all the people who openly said, I don't know anything about him, but I'm excited to have the first black president? You're like,
Yeah.
So he could be a terrible person. He could be like, what if he was a rapist? And are you still excited that he's just a black man? Like, that's racism.
Imagine that in the other scenario. If a white man was running for office.
Yes,
Imagine in a
yes.
couple of generations, we only have identity politics with black women running for office.
Yes.
But then a white man
Yeah.
runs and, you know, people are voting for them because he is white.
Yes.
I'm voting for
Ridiculous.
them because he's white. I don't know what he's done. I don't know anything about him,
His
but he's white,
character,
so
his
I'm going to vote
policy,
for
who
him.
cares? Yep. It's awful.
Doesn't this hypocrisy seem very clear to you there?
Yes.
It does to
Yes.
you, me, and Luke, but it doesn't to most people.
Yeah.
In fact, if you talk to a vast majority of people on a certain side of the fence, there's no such thing as being racist against white
Yes,
people. That
yes.
doesn't exist.
Because they changed the definition of racism, and now
Correct.
it's like whoever holds the power.
Right. And even then, it's like, okay, well, define power because we had 4 years of a black president.
Right.
Like,
We had 8
what are we
years of a-
talking
we had
about here?
8 years of a black
Or
president.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
8 years, yeah.
absolutely.
So if you move to a country where white is a minority and whites are, you know, prejudiced against
South Africa.
Yeah, I was just going to
South
say.
Africa, it is not a fun time to be a white kid.
No.
No,
No.
but it's
But
racist
no
to-
one cares about the white farmers being slaughtered and murdered there
Exactly.
because
It's not
they're the
racist.
wrong color.
It's the exact
Exactly.
opposite of what we understand as racism. I mean, I am friendly with a guy who has been stabbed multiple times over there, and he escaped.
Jeez.
But I mean, I don't know what else to call them other than the gang leaders in South Africa. like, being a white guy there is the most dangerous thing you could be.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Period. In South Africa, it's terrifying for them.
And it's like, why is it not enough to just disown that across the board? To just say, hey, if you hate someone because of their skin color,
it up and
it's bad.
Sell it at that
Exactly.
point. You cannot package it in
It
this
loses
neat
its-
little package that
Yeah.
gets someone upset over something that didn't happen in their lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, you use terms like reparations and things like this instead of saying, you know what, it doesn't even matter if you're this color. I'm not even going to say because I don't want to get called racist. This color or that color. If you do enough, you will succeed.
Yes.
Based on your own hard work and the merits that you can bring to this world.
And holding that standard to everybody.
Because it doesn't sell.
It's easy.
It doesn't sell. You can't sell a social program off of that because then why do you need the government?
And it doesn't give power back to the media and the government. Yeah.
Yeah. And instead, you get a guy who maybe doesn't want to work, and that goes across the board. There's probably more freaking white dudes in the trailer park who don't want to work and want to collect that welfare check. This applies to so many people. It's silly.
It's human nature. It's
just
not.
a
It's not
human
like
thing.
white, black, Hispanic nature. It's human nature. It's just that they feed this fire.
Yeah.
Because it works. It feeds their 401ks and their bank accounts and their
Seat of
plans.
power.
It just does. That's how you conquer society.
Yeah.
You know, and
dividing it up. I mean, using racial differences is a great way to divide people up and to use for political leverage, and that's always going to be the case.
Because it's so visible. You're always reminded of it, and as long as you can walk down the street and see the quote unquote enemy, it's a constant reminder. So it's very convenient. Although I would say it's evil. It's evil to race bait people like that.
It's horrible.
I think that's one of the reasons why they push for mass immigration, and this is the case in the United States, but this is also really obviously happening across the Western world, in Europe.
Yeah,
They're pushing for mass immigration from Muslim countries and African countries, even to places where Spain, for example, has a 57% unemployment rate among the youth. They should not be accepting more people in there.
Right. Handle your own house, like clean it up before you start bringing in some guests, you know?
Exactly. And I think that they're really going to use their racial differences to exploit that in the future for political power.
But that's the argument that this country is not actually free is based on that, is because everyone's just this neat little chess piece that can be moved across the board.
Yeah.
And until that stops, I mean, there's a reason that the Constitution is so important and our founding fathers are so important because they fled that.
Yeah.
And they set up this country to protect against that. And what's happened is everyone's become so complacent and just tribal in nature that they're allowing it to happen again. I mean, can you really blame the people in power for seizing the power?
It's like it's there.
It was there for the taking because nobody stood up. No one wanted to get involved in these things. And now I feel like people like you, I mean, even throwing myself into that because this didn't start out as a political podcast.
I was going to say, you're taking some risk. Yeah.
I've turned it into that, and I don't care if people don't like it. We have an audience, and I think people have got to stand up for what they believe in and protect.
The more the better.
And I don't care who disagrees with me on that. I don't.
Yeah.
And if I say something about California and you don't like it, I don't care. Don't come to Texas.
No, there was this saying that was like very big when I was in high school in like the early 2000s, whatever, 2010 or so. And it was like, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say
Isn't that a French Revolution?
And it probably was. But I think it's a good saying, and it's one that we've kind of abandoned though. Like now there's this movement that started with the idea of like punch a Nazi, right? If you remember this from like 4 or 5 years ago, where it was like, find someone who you believe is a Nazi or who local Antifa told you is a Nazi or whatever, and then sucker punch them. Because this is usually wrong, right? We don't believe in violence, except for like Nazis. Like we can do this to them, right? And once you label, it's like label, demonize, and then abuse. Then once someone is labeled and demonized, all abuse becomes necessary. So it's like, we believe in free speech, except for like Nazis. We don't want Nazis to talk, right? Like, and we believe that everyone deserves freedom, except for like Nazis. So like mail them away on cattle cars and get them to re-education camps. But everyone else deserves it to protect society. And it's like, well, wait a second. What if those people come out and say like, I'm not a Nazi. Like, I don't like any of that. Like, I'm a free market Democratic Republic supporter. Like, what are you talking about? but you've been labeled and you've been demonized, so now we can do anything to you.
You know what's crazy? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. This is something I found interesting about American education, that there was such a focus on the Nazi era and then Hitler, but not enough on Stalin and Mao.
Yeah.
And I'm like, those guys killed more
Way more.
people.
Way more.
And
Yeah.
but you can walk around with a Soviet flag and there's no issue.
Yes, yes.
And if you say you're a Stalinist, no one will bother you. But if you say you're a Nazi,
Hammer and sickle
fine.
should be every bit as disowned and hated as the swastika.
Or even worse.
Every bit. Yeah.
They've killed more people.
They've
Yes.
killed more people.
Yes.
Their own.
By like multiple factors.
And they say it's because of a religious thing, but they killed a lot of Christian
Yeah.
Russians.
Yes.
So I think it's an interesting thing that they don't cover that. And I think it's on purpose,
Yeah.
you know?
Atheism coupled with communism and atheism coupled with socialism has killed more than any ideology in the history of the world. More than Muslims, more than Christians, more than anyone else. And you can call it non-religious if you want, but it's a religion of the non-religious.
I mean, it takes I can't speak, as much faith to not believe in God, to believe in God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that is your passion,
Yeah.
and your passion is then to force that on other people, how is that any different than a Muslim forcing their faith or a Christian forcing their faith? And they go together, atheism and communism, atheism and socialism. You look at Mao, you look at Stalin, you look at Fidel and Raul, they all did the same thing. Claim power, eliminate political opposition, and then get rid of what's the next influencer? The church.
Right.
Get rid of any religion, and when I say get rid, I mean kill them. Like kill them all. It's repeating throughout history.
Exactly. And what were you going to say that I interrupted?
I don't know. What you said was so much better probably than what I was going to say. So we can move on past that. But yeah, I mean, you guys are absolutely right. And it all starts with control.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Amen.
You know, by and large, just control. I mean, there's a reason that the Soviet Union was able to thrive because they just controlled everything. They still do. I mean, it's not the Soviet Union anymore, but they still control.
Yeah.
And the family, not only the church, but they also go after the family.
Yep. That's right.
It's smart.
And that is one of those really nice middle grounds where I do think like people like Ty and people who disagree with someone like me on a lot, but who are, I would call them good people, good-hearted people, where we can meet at the table and we can say, look, like, I don't believe that anyone, including my guys, should have all the control. I don't want them to shut you up. I don't want them to silence you. I don't want them to ship you away or forcefully close your store or paint a gold star on your forehead, right? Like, I don't want any of that.
And I don't want them to tell you that you can't identify as a panda bear either.
Right.
Go ahead. Just don't make me do it.
Yeah. Do your thing. It's like, but if we can all come against this level of control, I think that's a great central word that you hit on. There's a lot of unity to be found there. And maybe that's a use of the Biden buzz term, right? Unity.
Well,
Time to unite.
Unity is such an easy word to use, but also completely misrepresent.
Yes,
Right?
that's right.
He's not actually saying who he wants to unify.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, but it's smart.
Yeah.
It's smart. I mean, Obama used change.
Yep.
Right? I mean, Trump used Make America Great Again. They all use the same tagline. It just means something a little different.
Ambiguous, and so that your listeners are like, I have my idea of what
Triggered
change
Yeah,
means.
what
means.
that
Like,
means.
Yeah.
Making America Great Again means
For
back
me.
in the 1940s.
Right.
when-
Boomers love the Make America Great Again thing.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's very clever.
millennials and whatever comes after millennials love this unity thing.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
They don't even know who Joe Biden is.
Right. When he says unity, I would assert that Joe Biden and Kamala specifically, they mean conformity. They mean
that's what it
forced
means.
conformity. They don't mean unity.
And your real guy got his nominee stolen twice
Yeah.
by swampers. Call him whatever you want, but by career politicians.
Is that Bernie?
I mean, yeah, well, and Bernie's a career politician too, who actually has no merits whatsoever. I mean, he's just sad. I mean,
I actually appreciate Bernie, even though I don't agree with him at all.
I actually appreciate Bernie, and he actually went on Joe Rogan, and I actually enjoyed that. I did.
Same.
I watched
The only
bits
thing
of
is,
that, I think.
Same.
is he drops his convictions immediately.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
he
He
loses.
folds. Yeah.
He folds.
Yep.
Which is fine. He's old. We saw the
It's like,
little,
what's
the
the
little
point
thing
now?
that turned to be the
like, what's
greatest
the
thing
point
that
now?
happened this year. if you're in our world, you see him like on a bull doing that.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I don't know if you guys watch UFC, watch Conor McGregor get
Yes.
knocked out, but I got to see like Bernie Sanders choking him out. I'll never let that go. That was
I saw that. Yeah.
I
I'll
love
say,
that.
even though Connor is a Trump supporter, I'm not a big Connor fan. I think Connor needed to be humbled. I appreciated what Dustin did.
I love Dustin Poirier. He doesn't
Yeah.
even live that far away from here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, he's in
Yeah, he should
Lafayette,
come on.
Louisiana. I mean, he's in Florida now, but
Yeah.
yeah.
We were talking about this, how this is neither here nor there, but Florida and Texas feel like the last two places that you can
Isn't
go to
that
be
funny?
safe, to be truly free.
Yeah.
And it's
Isn't
kind of,
that funny for Florida at least? I feel
Yeah.
like Florida just joined the club.
Yeah.
Of the free states just
No,
recently.
Florida's been hanging in for a long time.
they came out strong though, in this,
Yeah.
and like a big
Florida's
spotlight
been
kind
a
of shifted.
and I think
didn't
this
they
is
go
the
blue in
They-
2012?
For one,
maybe I'm
Romney,
wrong.
I think
Romney, yeah, but-
lost it. But
Oh, they went.
Weasel Romney.
Yeah, I mean,
you gotta
Romney's-
take him with a grain of salt.
he was a terrible nominee. He had no
Yeah.
chance. I mean, he was worse than Obama. Let's be real. Romney's worse than Obama. And talk about a guy to flip on your freaking party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even just your party. Like flip on anyone who put faith in you. And I love the fact that Romney, slinked into some back room and asked Donald Trump for a job.
Yep.
And then Donald Trump endorsed him for the Senate. And then Romney comes out and backstabs him. You're like, you're such a loser, man. Like, you don't even need to like Trump to be like, that's a loser move. That's a real loser
I'll
move.
tell you one thing, Mr. Mormon, you're not
No
getting your own
integrity.
planet acting like that.
Yeah.
You're not going to be the god of your own universe,
Right.
Mr. Mormon.
Doesn't in Dante's Inferno, traitors are like the lowest ring of hell. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say I don't hate the enemy
Yeah.
because they're just doing what they're gonna do.
Yes.
But the traitors are worse.
I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I can't hate liberals because someone let them take this power. Like,
Yeah.
it was allowed. They were allowed to pass through that gate and seize power because Republicans, at least the Republicans who have been occupying these seats, and I can't wait if term limits is a thing. That would be the best thing in the world because we
love
could
it.
completely
Get 'em all out.
We could get so much more done with fresh perspective and getting rid of these people. The reason they don't want term limits because they don't want to lose
Why
their
would
money.
they do
It
that to
destroys their full
themselves? That's the
structure.
question.
It destroys everything the lobbyists have pushed for in their money and influence, and everything that these career politicians have pushed for. And that's why I think it needs to happen.
That's
like
if they
dismantle
don't
it, baby.
want it, we need to march and
Yeah.
demand it.
Yes.
Because there's a reason they don't want it.
Yep.
It's only to protect their own skin, and that's the only reason they're doing anything they're doing. Is this small group of people has taken 380 million humans or Americans, call them whatever you want to call them, tax money, and used it systematically to create their lives.
Yes.
And that's what all this goes back to.
And it really is basically an oligarchy at this point,
It is.
where because of the lack of term limits and because of the system of power being traded,
Welcome
that
to
we have
Sparta,
in place,
motherfuckers.
it's like that. It's rough. So I would love to see term limits. Yeah.
But how's that gonna happen? You need a huge grassroots movement.
You need
because
to
you're
pressure-
not gonna get any help from
Well, actually-
the mainstream.
No, you're not
Well, Republican senators actually reintroduced amendments imposing term limits.
opposing them.
Imposing
Imposing
term limits.
Oh, good.
Senator.
Which Senate? Probably like 3 of them,
Dan
right?
Crenshaw.
Mike Braun, Pat Booney, Marco Rubio, Todd Young, Rick Scott, and Ted Cruz.
Yeah. So
yeah,
6.
sorry,
Rubio,
Dan
that's
Crenshaw
interesting.
is in the House.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah. So it's going to be hard for them to get traction on that, though.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard. That's where your local districts, because I've been like involved with district politics, you can go to their office, you can write them, you can call them and tell them like either support term limits or we vote you out next time. And that has to have teeth to it. You have to start a movement then to vote them out if they don't
People are
support term limits.
goldfish, though. That's the problem. They forget. They
Yes,
forget.
they do.
And 2 years is
Yeah.
a long
Oof.
time to remember things.
Maybe
right?
that's
It's-
why Biden is doing all these executive orders now. So maybe people will forget.
forget. Oh, they
and-
will.
And they do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that a bill is 12,000 pages.
Yep.
You think that's for no reason? It could be one sheet of freaking college rule paper written
Yeah.
down. It could be.
It's another problem I have is the length of bills and the fact that pork is legal. And for anyone who doesn't know, like pork is, I know you guys know, but pork is something in the bill that has nothing to do with the topic at hand. So it should be illegal. Actually, the PA State House has it illegal, which is awesome. They have what is called a single topic rule. So if we're writing a bill about COVID relief, you have to be able to present on the floor how this, section A1 relates to COVID relief. And if it happens to be, I don't know, funding for Burma or Nepal, which we saw in the House bill,
yeah.
But that's
then
how
it's like,
all these things
this
have gotten
doesn't
passed.
relate to it. Like, why is this in this bill? Save that for another time.
Well, they developed that back in the early 1900s, the Pass Secret Agenda. I mean, it's always been that way. That's how they've funded these wars in other countries, is passing it through bills. So you don't actually understand that you just signed away by thinking, I vote for Bill 1A or whatever it is. You just signed up to give Saudi $11 billion. You know,
and it's buried on page 900 of a 1,500-page bill.
It is.
It's
yeah,
garbage.
But nobody understands that.
So dishonest.
Almost every one of these wars that don't have any merit are started on a piece of paper like that. It's a real thing, and no one can really stop it unless you. I don't even know how. I couldn't even begin to imagine how you
removing pork, term limits, and limiting the length of bills would be 3 huge, awesome steps. Because if you're like, look, this bill should be able to fit in whatever, let's just say 2,000 words, 10 pages, whatever, then everyone can read that. The public can read that in one sitting. Every rep can read that. But even AOC said, in a rare instance in which I agreed with her about this most recent COVID relief bill, she was like, it is, I believe it was 1,200 pages long. She's like, it's 1,200 pages long. We were given 2 hours to read it. No one knows what they're voting for. And she's right. She's absolutely right.
And who made the decision to only give them 2 hours?
Yeah. Powers that be who know that they've got their little, their little gimmies buried on page 900.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and anybody who's listening to this, get involved in your local politics because it starts from the bottom up. It doesn't doesn't start from the top down. You have to influence your local down to the city. If you think you make a difference, run for city council.
School board, city council, county council. Yeah.
You have to start, and you have to, because it happens at that level too.
It does.
It's just less money.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
nothing trickles down. Most of it trickles up. And to be honest, if you go from Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, now Biden, not a lot's changed for your life. Like your life hasn't been dramatically affected, but if you live in the county here and they pass some crazy tax bills or certain things like that, property tax increase, like heating and electric increases, these are the things that really
affects you immediately.
And you need to pay attention to those things too. Yeah. And I don't think enough people are enamored enough with the idea of getting involved in our local politics.
Right.
Because that's where everybody starts, right? Unless you're born into an elitist family, like every politician is, right? You go straight from Yale,
you're
Harvard,
a Bush or a Clinton,
or Princeton, you go straight from those places, straight from the Bohemian Grove, and
which is oh my gosh,
that's why I'm not totally
creepy real place.
Opposed to monarchies, guys.
Oh no, here we go. Here we go.
No.
No, this is a good, interesting, controversial topic. I want to hear it.
I mean,
I really am interested
you
in
did
that.
say that politicians, for the most part, are born into elite families.
Yes.
And I was having this conversation with some people, and I said, well, I think monarchy is actually a great system. And they said, do you think
it's
power
oldest,
should
certainly
be...
the oldest.
Yeah, it's the oldest, and it has been the most stable with, a couple of problems here and there, but it's the one that's lasted the longest.
Loss of heads.
The thing is, some loss of heads here and there,
What, maybe 100 million serfs killed over the course of 2,000 years?
But the thing is, there is a incentive by the monarch to keep their country stable and keep its traditions going, versus you don't have that with corporate politicians, which is what I would call them.
It's an interesting term.
No, which is why so much of the ground in this country doesn't belong to this country.
Yeah.
Because you also have to think, right? Like, you're likely, like Luke, you're likely not going to think past your own lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? So get as much as I can get from me right now before I die. That's the human mindset.
Yeah.
And it's just an animalistic mindset, right? A dog thinks that way. And, a horse, a horse thinks that way. Every animal thinks that way. Like, I have to get through my own lifetime. I got to procreate. I got to stay alive. I got to eat, drink, and sleep, and do that. And humans think the exact same things, right? And so that's why we see this, right? That's why a politician will get in there, hold on to his term as fast as he can, collect whatever money he can, then he's good.
Yes.
He doesn't care about you.
Yep.
Yeah.
What I have, the debt that he accumulates that I have to pay off, right?
He doesn't care.
They don't care that they ruin the country in a couple of decades.
Because they're fine.
Because they're fine. It's
and
not
so are their kids
legacy,
because they're fine.
Which is why monarchy works.
Which is why, like, you guys may think, like, oh, yeah, we screwed. No, you didn't, dude. That guy's got $11 billion. And it's like, no matter what you do, you're never going to screw him in his line. Yep. Unless $1 all of a sudden becomes $1 million. All of a sudden, then, but he still has more than everybody else.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So, like, he's not going to hurt. He will never hurt. And that's why you have to put a little bit of merit behind him getting into office. Like, did he know something that we didn't know? Like, why would he do that? Why would he risk that? If I got billions of dollars, I am not messing with this.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense. The hate.
Why get involved?
Why? Unless
Yeah.
there was a specific reason, and maybe his reason, he just couldn't articulate it well enough, because unfortunately he wasn't the great speaker Obama was.
Right.
More than, he's a better speaker than Joe Biden.
Right.
True.
Maybe not
That's
Joe
true.
Biden 1970. Actually, Joe Biden 1970.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's something to that. And that's why, even though I personally don't like him, just he annoys me. I just
Trumpy bear.
he just is annoying. Like,
Biden.
but I can respect the fact that he put himself in a situation that was really shitty for him and his family.
Yes.
You know, there's people out there signing petitions to make sure that anybody who worked with Trump in the last 4 years can't get a job.
Never works
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, Kayleigh
Yep.
McEnany, you can't hire her for anything. Don't even hire her to sweep your floors.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the type of
That's why I respect Trump.
that's the type of targeting and abuse of power that I think
And he
did
had
fight
to-
against.
If he was too arrogant, I don't know him. If he was too arrogant to know that was coming, at least a huge portion of his family is not, and a big portion of the people who worked with him were telling him that would happen.
Yes. Yes.
So he knew that there was a huge chance that he was going to lose this election, and there was a possibility that it would be fraudulent, or he wouldn't have been saying that.
Yeah,
ahead of
that's true.
time.
Yep, and love him or hate him, he has been saying the same stuff for years.
Yeah.
Very, very akin to Bernie Sanders, where it's like, look, you can disagree with him, but if you go back and look at interviews from the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, he's saying this stuff. Like Bernie's saying the same stuff, and
He
Trump
hasn't
is saying the
changed.
same stuff. Trump
Pretty
is saying
consistent.
like, I hate seeing America get ripped off. I hate seeing like China
And he's
take
always
away
said,
American
look,
jobs.
I take
like,
advantage of this stuff because it's there.
Yep.
Yet you
Right.
do.
And that-
doesn't mean it's
the
a good
loopholes
thing.
and all that. That's
I
one
mean,
of
I
the
would
most.
do the same thing if I was him.
Oh yeah,
We all
it's,
would.
It's legal. It's like
Right.
who's to blame here? The businessman who says this is technically legal, so I'll benefit from it, or the legislature who said let's write these loopholes into the system. It's the people who wrote the rule book.
Right.
That's who you blame. You don't blame someone who used the rule book and succeeded.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, if baseball's being invented and there's a bat sitting right there, you're going to use the bat
Yeah.
for
Right.
baseball.
Yep, exactly. Until someone tells you that's illegal to do.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. So that is one of the most hypocritical, I think, criticisms that we saw come out against Trump in this campaign cycle. Is
Yeah.
people saying like, well, he probably, avoided taxes. It's like, all right, and who wrote those laws? The power structure.
But we also learned in this, like the core people who voted Biden in, for instance, right? Everything they said about Trump, there's a lot of crap that Biden's done.
Yeah.
Right? He
Oh, yeah.
said,
Yeah.
if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Those are regular, like he actually said that. And I mean, he did. I was like,
know.
I was like, no, he's done. It's over. See you, Joe
know.
Biden. It's over.
That's where you
And
see the
he is
difference
now
in the media
president.
treatment.
That is where-
So, I
yeah,
mean, it's
They
very
will
obvious.
overlook it, or they
Yep.
never saw it because
Yes.
it got
Yeah.
buried. But it'll be overlooked, and
Yes.
that's hypocrisy, right? You can hate Trump for saying some dumb crap,
Sure.
rightfully so. Don't like that. But if Joe Biden does, and you won't even acknowledge
You
that it
ignore
ever
it,
happened,
or you never knew
Or
that
you
it happened.
Or you
explain it
never
away,
knew.
or you
Yes.
contextualize it to make
Yeah.
it look better. That's
Yes.
what they did.
it's just
Yes.
it doesn't make sense.
Another
to do
side
that.
of it, I'm just putting this out there. Grab him by the pussy. That's what Trump said.
Yeah.
Again, but then you also say, well,
I'm
he
just
said this
saying.
and now he said that.
But
Like,
you know what?
That's exactly what
I'm
we're
gonna
talking about.
I'm gonna touch on that specific point.
He wasn't in
because
politics at that time.
He wasn't in politics. One,
Sure. Private citizen.
I,
Yeah.
for one, at that point was against Trump. I didn't like him,
Mm.
so I took that one as a con against him. But I recognized that I've heard my liberal friends speak exactly like that.
Interesting.
About someone else.
Let's be
They
real.
knew.
Maybe not those exact words, but we've all said
Both
crap
men and women.
like
Yeah,
that.
that
Maybe
you
not
wouldn't
that
want
exact
on.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we've all said things like, "Oh man, thank God no one heard me say that."
Sure.
Yeah, so I felt
know?
it felt very hypocritical, especially of my liberal friends that
Yeah.
were complaining about that. But
Yes.
yeah, in their private conversations with
So
their
you're
friends,
like, I know what you
both
talk about.
men and
I've-
women, women do this
Oh.
a lot. As liberal women specifically, they do
Yeah.
it more.
Oh
than
yeah,
men.
I've heard some crazy stuff.
And they say that stuff, and yet they complain that he said that. I'm like, you
I-
say the same thing in private conversations.
Yes.
Well, all the time.
Interesting.
And I'll even get unsolicited messages
Oh yeah.
asking for. I mean, we all do.
Yes.
Right. All of
the
us.
first message I sent you was unsolicited.
It was. But you were like,
Not that
you were
style of
Not like
hey,
that.
You were like, hey, I saw you on YouTube. Send me a picture of your beep.
Luke.
Yes, I did
He
not.
did not ask
as
for
much
that.
as I appreciate Chance. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't. Luckily, you didn't. But
Yep.
but we've all done that. And so one thing that we maybe haven't done though is be like, you are not your race.
Yeah.
You don't do what I say.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
That's
it's
true.
different.
It is different. Yeah.
There's an argument for locker room talk just being locker room talk, whether it's a girl's locker room, a boy's locker room, or a his, hers, these, her locker room.
Sure. Yep.
Whatever.
Yep. You don't have to like it or morally approve of it to say like,
yeah, who
all right,
does?
let's treat this as what it is and nothing more, nothing less.
Exactly.
But what he said,
Yeah.
racist.
Yeah.
So I have to call it racist? I
Yes.
think I do have to call that
Not
racist.
to mention, what's
You
the
do.
one with the poor kids are just as smart as the white kids?
So I think that one is like you could possibly fairly chalk it up to a Joe Biden just like Freudian slip.
brain.
It's a
Yeah.
But it's
Freudian
a Freudian
slip.
slip.
I
nonetheless.
believe
It's
the
a
rich people are
like,
the white.
Yes, he's saying like
The poor ones
I
are the
assume
black
that
kids.
rich people are white and poor people are black. Like that is the clear mental process behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was easy to
you're
see
like-
that he messed up. Like the teleprompter did, like it went
Yeah.
for a second. But the point is, if you're going to hold Trump to one standard,
Yes.
you got to also hold Joe
Exactly.
Biden to it. And
Yes.
that is the thing that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
He refused to do it. And even if you make a point like that's so blatant like that, like what'll happen is, yeah, but.
Yeah.
Well, Trump's not an officer.
Yeah, but
Trump
or
did this.
complete deflection.
Yeah,
You know,
correct.
even if I speak about one topic, and I do this on my social media, and I do not mention Trump at all, I just criticize something else.
Hey, Riley, would you do me a favor and hand me some water, please?
Can you make that
Oh,
too?
same.
3.
Thank you.
I think I put only a couple in the fridge, so you might have to just give
mine doesn't
Luke
have
and
to
I
be
a
cold.
bottle and split it. Yeah.
There's back to that initial message. We'll
Exactly.
split a bottle.
There's always a deflection of I'm speaking about one specific situation that
Yes.
has nothing to do with Trump.
Yes.
And yet the comments always come, well,
about Trump?
but Trump.
Right,
And I'm
right.
like, this
So
is not about Trump.
The
Thank you.
question there is it not possible that both of these men, let's just take lying, for instance, right? Like you say, like, oh, hey, Joe Biden was caught, pants on fire lying. And someone says, well, what about the time Trump lied? And you go, let's assume that I grant that you're right. And the situation that you're using is a time that Trump lied. Does that change the fact that Joe Biden is also by definition a liar? And if so, shouldn't we say, then to be consistent, let's not support either of them, as opposed to you trying to make Joe Biden sound like the moral decision over Trump? Like,
Yeah, I think that's
that
probably,
is how it would follow, right?
That might be the best point of this entire thing, right? Because to act like two liars can't exist in the same universe is silly.
Exactly.
Right? And just because one of them is your guy and the other one isn't,
Yep.
we've all told lies too. But yeah, that was a perfect point. I hope that if somebody was on the fence, like they actually heard what you just said. I wish you would say it again.
Yeah, no, it's a point on actually. I've talked to some of my family members about this and some close friends. What we're talking about really is like the difference between a comparison and whataboutism. So whataboutism is like using X to justify Y with no further argument given, right? So I say like, well, Chance murdered somebody, and Elizabeth says like, yeah, well, Luke murdered somebody too. And it's like, okay, but like, can we deal with the fact that he murdered somebody because that's the topic at hand here,
Right.
and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't deal with the other person,
Right.
and it doesn't disprove the fact that he murdered somebody. So that's whataboutism. And then a comparison though is saying, hey, this guy did it too, and can we talk about that? Are you being consistent with your standards? So if you're going to disown Chance because he murdered somebody, but you love me knowing that I murdered
we
somebody,
could have made it
that
Chance stole a
right?
pack of gum, but I mean, whatever.
Sorry, right? But it's like if you're gonna hold that standard to him and then turn around and be a hypocrite in the way that you treat me,
Right.
then I have the right to point that out to you. That's not whataboutism. That's me saying you're being inconsistent. So they're
but
two different things.
They
right?
have reinforcement to hold, beliefs that are incompatible with each other. I mean,
Yes.
what it just happened right now with the Capitol. And now you
Here
have
we
a
go.
bunch of people
Yeah.
that are condemning the Capitol. And,
Yes. Everybody.
and
Yeah.
but a few months ago, they were encouraging violent riots across the country.
Yes.
And
Bailing people out, encouraging them outright.
but they don't see the
But that never
hypocrisy with
Right,
those two
right.
things.
I mean, we're literally living in a time where that stuff never happened.
Right.
Yeah,
What's his
that
name?
didn't happen.
Nadler.
That's true.
Jerry Nadler is
Yeah.
on the record, on camera, saying riots are a myth. Riots aren't happening. Right. It's like as the
Right.
numbers tick up of deaths, as
Some
people
dude's
lose
like,
their businesses.
Yo, Portland's on fire!
It's like the classic, I think it's MSNBC clip of the guy with like an explosion behind him, and he says, "No, don't
No,
let this
it's
deceive you. It is
peaceful.
primarily peaceful." And
Theory,
you're like,
but peaceful.
right. He's like, It's like, good Lord. Like, and who applied that standard to the DC riot? Exactly nobody. Nobody said, hey, there were...
Because where are you going to do it at? What, Parlor? Parlor got taken off.
Right, exactly.
You know, there's nowhere to do it.
No,
Like,
and
it'll
they
gain
shouldn't
no
have
traction.
applied that standard because it was terrible things happen, but no one said, hey, there were hundreds of thousands of people here, and a few people got violent. No one said that. They just said violent riot. But when it's for the left wing, then it's primarily peaceful with turned violent once you know the sun set. And it's like, what? If you're lucky, they admit that it turned violent.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Yeah. So you were talking about that as the example.
There's these people hold mutually exclusive beliefs simultaneously in their brains, but they wouldn't be able to do that if it was not for the reinforcement they get from mainstream media and like major cultural
daily
institutions.
Reinforcement.
Exactly.
Yes.
They're on shaky grounds.
Well, and
their
social
beliefs are on
media
shaky
too.
grounds.
I agree.
Social media is literally created to feed you your belief system.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, it is. It's never going to show you something you don't want because it follows your patterns. I mean, what was that thing on Netflix? We've talked about it before. Was it Social Dilemma?
Oh, yeah.
That was scary.
It's like about the algorithms they use to paint a picture of who you are, what you'll consume, what you'll buy, who you'll listen to. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're never even given the opportunity to get a different viewpoint.
Yes.
And that goes for both sides.
Right. Although it used to go for both sides, now one side is being cut out and they're saying your echo chamber is no longer allowed to exist. Only the leftist echo chamber can exist. So it's like there are these levels of degradation, and it's bad that we all exist in an echo chamber, but at least we each have our own echo chamber to exist in. But now they're saying the right wing has no echo chamber. You are banished. Only the left wing is allowed to exist. And it's like, whoa.
I think that's a great recipe for radicalizing people.
It is. It is. Absolutely.
I mean, if you end up on Telegram right now, you can see easily how people can be radicalized further to the right.
Yeah.
By what
and
people
it's
are
happening in masses. I mean, and I don't think it's a good thing.
No.
Because
it's not.
You need stable-minded, common sense people representing the left side too.
Yes.
You do. It can't be all of what's going on there. It's the same as like we can't have a bunch of freaking whack job redneck people with no teeth shooting their shotgun out of the back of their truck representing an entire demographic of. There has to be common sense on both parties that could come to a table like this and talk about it. And there just isn't anymore. It's gone.
And that's where the right does have to grab the reins of their own people and say, we're taking the high road. It doesn't matter if it makes it harder for us. We need to do the right thing because radicalizing is falling into the trap that they've set. And that is not the right thing to do. It's not a wise thing to do. It's not a moral thing to do. And strategically, it's not a good thing to do either.
Don't do it. Yeah, I mean, literally, hey guys, don't do it.
Yeah.
What's the best way to do it then? What's the way to go?
So I really think treating primaries as a general election. So getting rid of the people who have backstabbed you. So like in the Tea Party movement, right? We saw a lot of people convinced that the way to cripple Obama was to vote for anyone who had an R next to their name. And they did that, and they voted in a bunch of rhinos who largely sold out on them. A lot of Paul Ryan clones, right? And so that was very disappointing. Now people are more involved. Now people are more educated. So find those rhinos, run against them. That's what I'm planning to find the right rhino to remove from power and expose them. And on top of that, I know a lot of people are frustrated with the fraud. And like I experienced this and went through this. You need to look into how most of the fraud happened. Some of it was indeed by or at least allegedly through these systems, right? Sequoia voting systems and Smartmatic and all this stuff, which, by the way, Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar, Democratic leaders, agreed with 2 years ago. They wrote a congressional statement saying that these voting systems were a threat to democracy. So some of it was that, and that needs to be addressed by great states like Texas, who said, hey, we're going to reject that voting system because it's so open to corruption. But then a lot of the corruption that we saw happening is from the mail-in physical paper ballots, and that boils down to oversight. This is like this simple.
I got 2 ballots.
Right, so it's that type of stuff.
I got a Texas ballot and a Colorado ballot.
So you get 2, right? And then the Republican poll watchers who are supposed to be there checking this stuff were either sent home or they didn't do their job. They didn't check it as much as they could. So all of this to say, you can get involved and stop a lot of the fraud that's happening. Like a lot of this fraud was avoidable, and it came down to people not being prepared. So. Yeah.
But do you think it's avoidable in the future? Because I think a lot of people right now are feeling their trust in the electoral system is
should
gone.
be shaken, but that should drive them to be more involved, not less involved. So yes, you can help it, and you should help it. Is my take. A great example is in Georgia. Actually, there is a county chairman, Republican chairman, who testifies saying that his people, the Republican poll watchers, were sent home. They were told under the pretense that voting had stopped, or that ballot counting had stopped for the night. And when they came back the next day, surprise, surprise, they decided to continue counting with no Republican oversight. And oh my gosh, all these ballots here happen to be for Joe Biden. That's avoidable. That's avoidable corruption. Where if the Republicans had said, we're not going home, we're going to leave someone here to all night until everyone leaves to make sure that this is what's happening. That's one example of where involvement could have avoided corruption. Does that kind of make sense? Like,
right.
I'm not saying you can avoid everything, but you can avoid a lot.
Enough to make it a fair and true election.
Yes, to make a difference. Yeah.
You know, statistically anyways.
Yes.
So you do believe in 2024 there can be a fair election?
There can
I do,
be.
because I think it was a fair election in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that I mean, it was. And I mean, Hillary did win the popular vote, which made it the perfect sense, right? But Trump won, and I don't think anybody anticipated that happening, which shows that it was a fair election. Because there's no way Trump couldn't have affected the election in 2016. It is literally impossible.
Yes. Yeah.
He didn't have any strings to pull really at
the
time.
No,
he didn't. He didn't even have the backing of the RNC yet.
No,
really. So that was a true and fair election. Obama won both his for sure because Obama's,
very believable, very believable wins.
The people he ran against, it's like. Yeah.
We all knew in our hearts
as we destroyed those guys. Of course he did.
Yeah.
And there were aspects of Obama term one that actually, I don't think I got to vote. No, I only got to vote in the second one.
Yeah.
But
same.
Yeah. I wasn't old enough, but that made sense.
Yes.
Obama made sense to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that I was like, okay, maybe this was not what it was said to be, but
no, that's fair.
Those are all fair elections. The only one that's suspect is this one because it doesn't make sense. Yes. I mean, I can see a huge mass amount of people voting against Donald Trump because he's Donald Trump. That makes a lot of sense. But what I can not wrap my head around is that more people voted for Joe Biden than voted for Obama in his second term. I have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
Granted, there's more people here and there's a lot.
I was going to say,
there's more people.
Don't you think about voter turnout would be up though? Because voter turnout was up in 2018. And when you think that trend would go up, thus more votes be out there.
Yeah, to a point, but for it to be that large, I just personally have a hard time seeing it. I can, if there were numbers, I'd be like, okay, no, I see the numbers, that makes sense. But
didn't Trump get more votes than Obama did too, at least in this election?
He did.
Yeah, both of them did.
So I'm saying, doesn't that make sense though in terms of trends of voter turnout going up, and both candidates getting more votes than the prior winner of the presidential election?
More makes sense, but if you look at the increase and the rate of increase, that's what doesn't make sense.
That's all I'm saying.
And then not only the rate of increase, but also the open door to fraud with that rate of increase, because so many of those ballots were from extended periods of voting. For instance, in PA, you could vote 50 days prior to election and 3 days after election. There was no signature check, and they did not have to be postmarked. Those are just some examples from the state that I'm most familiar with of where these increases in quote unquote voter turnout could have been fraudulent ballots that were there was more time for people to make fraudulent ballots. Does that make sense? I think that's at least a concern to be had.
Yeah, it is. And it's there's a very specific reason why. I mean, the Biden administration could ask for a recount. They could have done all sorts of things. There's a reason they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I would have thought that it made sense though. Like,
yes.
No, right. I know
I won.
I know I won this for real. Let me prove this ding dong wrong.
Yep.
And let's do
dunk
recount.
on them. Yeah. Go ahead, recount. I'm not scared.
No.
Yep.
I'm not even going to comment on this.
No recount.
That's
for
very
me,
telling.
the biggest red flag was stopping the counts in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That was when me and my family went, this is sounding a little bit too familiar right now. The Biden going on TV right before stopping the count and saying, this is what's going to happen. And then, boom, the counting stops.
And do I think that Trump would have still beat Biden. Yeah, you'd have to really convince me that he would have beat him because of how many people hated him. Like I was like, I don't know if Trump can pull this off. You know what I mean? I just think there's a hole that's been dug for him and by just the whole nature of what's going on. This coronavirus was the perfect storm to make sure whoever was in power did not get reelected.
Yes.
You know, and it would have been the same if he was a Democrat. Like,
even if that's true, I feel like you should be able to investigate all of the votes that weren't.
Agreed.
Right. And it's not even that you should. They literally can.
Yes. Yes.
It's right. It's possible.
So this is the question of like, was there cheating versus was there enough cheating to make Trump lose? And it's like
neither matter.
Right? It's like they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Like if there was cheating, it should be investigated, and we don't have to say. And this is where I think Trump actually did misstep. He was like, I know I won, and like we won. You shouldn't have said that.
Still,
he should have said
that was a mistake.
Yes, yeah, he should have said, I am very confident there was cheating. And in order for this to be a free and fair election, we need to investigate that. That's a much better statement.
And that's just another prime example of me thinking that there might be an ego problem with Trump, because there had to have been, to them, the intelligent people in that cabinet, you would think that they would be advising against statements like that.
Yes. And
it happened over the course of the 4 years quite a few times where these statements came out that just make no sense. Like, why would you say that?
It's just foolish. Yeah.
It's just foolish. So there's a part of that is like, okay, there is a piece of this guy who is not going to let anybody tell him what to do. And one thing we did get to see, because we all know these Trump supporters who, no matter what, Trump is God, right?
Yes.
No matter what. Up until the very second, even now, he's got a plan. He's got a plan. Does he?
Right.
Does he? He just got ran out of the White
House.
He's
playing 4D chess.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, which would be a great sentiment if he was that intelligent, but I just don't see it.
Right.
You know, and I don't think he's the guy. Too, I don't think he's the guy to rally the party. You know, he may be a prominent figure to help, but I think we learned something great with Trump, right? We learned something great.
Yeah.
Now, who can be the person who actually takes those policies, implements them maybe a little more intelligent? Maybe it's Ted Cruz. I don't know. He's really done a good job of reinventing himself in the last few years.
He has.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. I hated Ted Cruz.
Me too.
I just
slightly disliked him.
He's an unlikable guy.
He was,
but now he's not.
Past 10, he is, dude. He feels like a champion for the people now.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't know what it was. Trump calling him Lion Ted, or I mean, I know they had
the Zodiac killer,
or what, but he truly saw something, or maybe it's the influence of guys like Dan Crenshaw who are purely here to help. Like, you just know.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody with a military background like that and wounded in combat gets involved and says the common sense stuff that they do, especially in Texas, it's like, you know, that guy's for the people, by the people.
And you don't need to agree with everything to appreciate the man. Right. And the incentive behind the man. Can I say two names for 2024? DeSantis and Ted Cruz.
Yeah,
I would Ronnie D and Ted Cruz.
See, I'm Ted Cruz and Christy Nomi. That's me.
Okay. Yeah, I could see it. Yeah. She's from what? One of the Dakotas, South Dakota.
She's
Christy's cool.
She's cool.
And I could get behind either of those tickets.
Right.
Same.
Sarah Palin, not a good choice, maybe, but this chick, great choice for a VP.
Yes.
You know, Ted Cruz, Christy Nomi, that checks a lot of boxes for me.
Yeah, I agree.
So. But I think you're right. We need to wrap up. But this was an absolute epic podcast, and we're probably going to keep talking about this at dinner and everything.
I think so. Yeah.
But I mean, this is why I wanted you guys here, so that we could have a high level conversation about politics. And I mean, we're speaking to our base, right? It's like, it's very clear the people who listen to this podcast kind of think what we think. But if you hear it and you think that there's anything you can do, like, hey, let's make smart decisions and see what we can do as a collective to help. Right.
Yes.
You know, we're all young people. We've decided that we need to have an active role in politics in one way or another. And I think every single person needs to, and we can affect change, but not unless we take this serious. And that's why I've shifted the direction the last couple weeks, the last month of this podcast, because this is important. It's important. And I think everyone needs to open their eyes and see it. So if you say, stop with the politics, I'm going to ignore you.
Yeah.
It's important.
This
stuff affects our lives.
I agree. Just be ready to have a target on your back. Keep talking about politics.
Is what it is.
It is what it is. And he's a Texan, right? He's in Texas. He's a Texan.
Yeah.
He'll be good.
I feel safe.
Yeah.
I'm not worried.
Yeah.
But whatever. Got people like you to talk to it about. We can all freaking lynch together, whatever.
Yeah. we'll all be, they'll send us to re-education camps together. We'll be in the same cell block.
That'll be fun.
That'll be cool. Yeah.
Young Tyler and Riley are involved in this too. You just can't see them. Them too. You're coming.
Yes. Yeah. Tyler's gonna be like,
I don't know what you're talking
about.
I was
Tyler's not gonna go.
disagreeing. Don't do
I was
it.
like, I've got all their addresses. They're here now. He's like, they're here. They're here. Come get them.
Joe, please, no.
I changed my address.
I love it. I love it. No, this has been awesome. Thank you,
Heck
man.
yeah. Yeah, I cannot wait to. I don't usually drink my own Kool-Aid, but I really want to listen to this.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
Oh, really?
yeah, it's cool.
Cool.
We'll promote the heck out of it.
Heck
Awesome
yeah.
sauce.
This has been The Gauge, hosted by me, Chance Conrado, produced and edited by our guy Ty Yeager. Shout out to the executive producers Dustin Pointer and Cody Denton. Marketing and content produced by Riley Chone. Our theme song is by Shay Ashshire and the Night Howlers. Make sure to rate and review this podcast, as well as follow The Gauge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to The Gauge wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you guys next time.